Welcome to See It and Feel It with Dr. Brett, and I'm Dr. Brett, and today I'm here with my golfing buddy and my regular buddy, Greg James, who is an interesting guy with an interesting background in the sports world as well. You know, because I do the sports psychology.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You played for Army. How long did you play for?
I played for teams that was in the Army, like for the base team.
I see.
The post team and stuff like that. As far as playing for the Army, no, I never.
Oh, I thought for some reason you played for Army.
No.
Tell us about the base teams. What was that like? What kind of teams did you play for?
Believe it or not, a lot of these guys were in college playing ball, high school, neighborhood legends, and they all went to the military. And we all got together and got on the team, and it was amazing, really. I mean, there were pretty good guys from every aspect of life.
Now, you spent 13 years in the military.
13.
How much of that was like, playing, some of these teams, and then how much of it, what happened? I know you got injured. There's a lot here. So
it's just sports in the military is everything. I mean, the competition is amazing. Every sport from softball, basketball, baseball, tackle football, flag football, every sport, wrestling, boxing, When I was playing sports, it was just kind of like a release, from the everyday grind of being a soldier, the training, always staying on top of things. I was, a squad leader or what have you, platoon sergeant, you have responsibility. So our outlet was sports. So, you always have this team that for some reason, regardless of how bad they are or how good you are, you always end up in the finals, This and it was that situation where we made it to the finals against this team in our battalion. The gym was packed, tight score all the way down to the end, and I went in for a layup. The guy pushed me into the wall, and the rest is history.
Wow.
It was for me. Now that I think back, it was traumatic. But at that time, my adrenaline was pumping so much, right?
Yeah.
Because my hand ended up on my wrist. Back, my wrist was like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that sounds so painful. I'm moving because I've been injured as
Yep.
well, but it's not quite the way you're describing it.
But,
Although my bone was here.
Yeah.
So that's not fun
I
either.
seen it and I knew it.
So you're actually, I know you knew it. So the actual hand was jammed into the into the forearm, like it was.
It was I was in the air,
Yeah.
and the next thing I knew,
Wow.
I got hit, I fell into the wall, and everything just collapsed.
Yeah.
That's how it is right now.
Yeah. And how many surgeries did you wind up having on that wrist?
1, 2, 3, 4, about 5.
5
I still need a few
surgeries.
more.
Wow, that's
But I'm not
crazy.
going to have them because it's working for me right now. So
Yeah, no.
I don't.
What changed about your life after that? What was
Everything.
Yeah.
Everything really changed. When it comes to sports, athletes, we have egos.
Yeah.
Everybody,
Never met an athlete with an ego. I have no idea what
we
you're
think
talking
we're
about.
better than everybody else. Even we can't shoot layup, we're still good, right? So I think it was just the mentality of knowing that you might not ever be able to compete at a certain level that you're used to. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like Superman without his cape, right? I mean, it's my right arm. I'm dunking with this thing. I'm shooting free throws. I can't do that.
Yeah.
Because I only have one bone holding this one.
Yeah.
This bone right here, right?
It's
So
done.
if that bone breaks, I'm done. So I got to be careful.
Right.
So with a lot
How
of
old were you at the time when this thing happened?
26, 27.
26, 27. Did you play high school basketball? You play like for a team or anything?
I had an opportunity to play for high school basketball, but I was always a worker.
Yeah.
Because when I came up in New Jersey, it was a lot of us, 10 of us. So we had to help mom out anywhere we can and stuff.
Got it.
We played a lot of intramural. I went out and tried out for a couple of teams, but I knew I couldn't be committed to that. I had to be more committed to my mom and my brothers and sisters and stuff.
Where were you in the birth order out of 10? Number 5.
We had 11. My mom actually adopted.
How is 11 possible? No, I don't know how 10 is possible. How do you do? I never understood that.
You know what?
Right? It's a different world.
When you're blessed to be born with brothers and sisters like that, man, you're never lonely.
Oh, that's
ever.
for sure.
Only serious thing about that is you got to fight for, you know, a place at the table.
Right. No,
So,
I had two brothers and we had to fight for a place at the table.
It was
So
great,
no.
you know. I mean, you know, the battles we had were fierce. You know, we loved hard, man. We looked out for each other, and you know, always took care of my mom. And you know, thank God, you know, by the grace of God, we pretty much made it. You know.
Yeah.
Military helped me a lot. Like I said, sports.
How'd you make that decision to go into the military? What was that? You know, because I have people that call me from time to time, and people that I work with, where it's almost like they need permission to, some of them anyway, to go into the military, because it's like their parents don't really. Some of them, the parents don't want them to go.
I think honestly,
And
I think it's more or less out of fear, the unknown. But you know, where I came from, there wasn't a whole lot of opportunities. You know, when I was in school, I always been a pretty good, you know, kid in school. My ultimate goal was to either be a brain surgeon or heart surgeon.
Brain surgeon or heart surgeon?
Well, you know, because you know, that was just me,
so
right?
intense.
But you know, back then, I'm 59. So back then, you know, 78, 76, 77, 78, going to high school.
World.
We didn't have access to all of this, what the kids have access to now. We had to figure it out. And my thing was, it was rough where we came up at, right? So you had to, you know, figure it out. And I joined the military a year before I graduated.
Wow.
Not knowing, you know, how well I really actually was doing in school. And when the scholarships or whatever, you know, came through, I was already committed to the military.
Wow.
And I went to school in the military. You know,
so you actually had college scholarships that you then had to.
Well, you find out later on after, you know, you apply for them and stuff like that. And,
Got it.
I don't know why I did.
And you'd already committed?
Yeah.
When you signed up, was it a 4-year sign up? How did it work originally?
3 years. And there's a story behind that too, because my brother went in a year before me, right?
Older brother,
Older brother, next to my older brother, Ira. And when he came home, you know, he was a hometown recruiter, because that's one of the incentives they give you. When you go in, you come back home and sorry about how you're doing, and you can help recruit more people, right? And he wound up recruiting me. So I did it so that, you know, I could kind of like make him.
Did he get a boost, or what did he get for recruiting you?
I don't, you know.
Did you split it with them?
No, you know, at that time it was like I was doing something good, you know, helping my brother out, you know. So I joined the delay entry, and a year later, July the 9th, I graduated on the 23rd of June, and July the 9th, I was in the military getting yelled at. It was crazy. But you know, it was
big change from high school and a family.
It was, and, you know, and it's a good thing too for me.
Yeah.
You know, because I grew up without a father, right? So you meet a lot of figures in the military.
Yeah.
You know, who really cling on to you, and they help you along as far as what you need. You know, as far as becoming a man and being committed and having the goal, you know, life. So, you know, I was fortunate really with the military. One for that.
Yeah. But it's also part of who you are, right? To attract the right mentors along the way.
I think so. I think, you know, everybody's always watching, right?
Everybody's always watching?
Everybody's always watching each other. We're watching each other. And, you know, that's where the best mentors come from.
Right.
Somebody who you least expect. Because I do some mentoring too. You know, I've done it. I don't do it now, but I think I'm going to get back into it. And the thing is, you know, if you know somebody's watching you, you know, you're not going to be yourself, right? So if you're a mentor, you just kind of like looking for somebody to, you know, to really guide and help out. You look for somebody who's not paying attention, who's actually doing something, you know, good or bad, that they don't know, you know, you're watching. You just, you know, say, you know, that kid needs me, or that, you know, female or whatever needs me to, you know, help them out with some things, some advice, or whatever.
You know, that's fascinating, Greg, because a lot of times we think that, you know, the mentee reaches out to the mentor, but there are times in life, because I've been mentoring a kid now for 5 or 6 years. And I remember I was in LA, like sitting outside a restaurant by myself, listening to music. And I just had a thought about this kid. And I literally sent him a text. I hadn't talked to him or heard from him for years. And something sort of popped in, an image popped in my head. And I sent him a text and I said to him, Ashante, do you want mentoring? And he said to me, absolutely, back. And then I said, if you do, then here's the deal. And I laid out the parameters, which meant that it wasn't going to be just a freebie, right? So he's going to have to do some work to do. But literally, I actually reached out to him. And most of the time, because as a sports psychologist, as a psychologist, at least 2 or 3 kids a month reach out to me, right? Somehow they find me on LinkedIn or the web or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And very few people have the sort of determination to sort of follow through with the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And Ashante never wavered. And we're, you know,
Yeah.
we're like buddies to this day because he always did his role pretty freaking well.
You know, something that that really helped me really look at how important being a mentor is or was, is, as you know, I'm a basketball official. I've been doing that for 35 years.
You just mentioned that the other day. He's a basketball official. He's been doing it for 35 years. You mentioned that casually the other day.
Well, you know, because it's the greatest thing that I've ever done in my life, other than be a husband and a father and a friend.
Nice.
Right.
So tell us about the basketball official thing.
Man, that little whistle is powerful. That little whistle will stop a Mack truck going how fast? You're gonna stop, right? That's me, right? So it allows me as a dad, as a successful man, you know, minority in life, to look at these kids realistically and be an example. You know what I'm saying? I mean, to be a role model, or just to give a hand, or sometimes as an official you have to show restraint.
Yeah,
you
for
have
sure.
to, you know, patience. Sometimes you have to show compassion. And when you're a basketball official, you see the different attitudes of kids. You know, you can tell the kids that are raised different at home. You know, whether you're in a, you know, middle class or you're not so fortunate and stuff like that, you can see by the attitudes and stuff. And as an official, I think for the kids that don't have that opportunity to experience that, you can be a part of that success, you know, by being
fair,
being available,
and fair too.
Fair,
right?
I mean,
that's probably one of the hardest elements of it, right?
It's the easiest.
It's the easiest.
For me, it is, because that's what I believe in, fairness, you know. So
yeah, but sometimes kids misperceive.
Yep.
Right. So when I say fair, I know you're a fair guy. I know you, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes kids misperceive, and then you have to bridge that gap somehow.
You do.
Right.
And that's, you know what, I think that's part of mentoring.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I can explain to another man's child better than he can as a dad.
Yeah.
You know, because when I used to coach my son's baseball team, me and the other coaches, we used to switch kids.
That's
I used
pretty
to coach
clever.
that kid's, that coach's kid, and he used to coach mine.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Because
clever,
you know,
by the way. Yeah.
And that's how it is when I equate that with
Yeah.
life, or you know, being blessed to be an official with, you know, dealing with young men and ladies, where we have that opportunity to be that buffer between the parent and the kid on the court. And a lot of times it's between the heat of battle, because a lot of times when you got two kids going at it, I could go bam, bam to both of them, but sometimes, you know, you walk up between them and you'll say, hey guys, we're here to play basketball or what? It's your option. What do you want to do?
Yeah.
All right, shake hands. That's it.
Yeah.
Keep
Now,
moving.
how do you handle the parent end of it? Because sometimes that probably gets more
honestly,
complicated, I would imagine.
I toss them.
You toss the parents?
Yes.
They're out.
I have to be the best example.
I love it. No.
So I'm gonna hold that parent accountable, because that parent, believe it or not, can make my job a whole lot easier.
Or a whole lot harder.
You know,
right.
so sometimes, you know, if you want me to be the bad guy, I can. I don't want to be, but you know what? I think one bad apple, man.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. But I would also imagine a little bit of the military training probably kicks in there at times. Tell us about that, how the
discipline. You know, it's just the ability to see things before they happen. So that makes, I don't know how to explain, but that kind of like makes you understand how fast to react, what to do. You know, I used to always, for an example, talk to the parents, and a lot of parents, they, you know, when the kids out there playing basketball, some of them, you know, the game is rough, right? So they'll get upset with me, and I'll tell them, I said, man, I'm retired military. I said, before something happens to your child, it'll happen to me first. Yeah. So that's, you know, that's the mentality that the military gave me, to know that I'll protect everybody if I have to, because that's, you know, that oath is for life, right? For me anyway. So even on the court, you know, with talking to you, whatever, it's just that instinct that never goes away. You protect
Yeah.
you know, at any cost.
Now, do you think that's a little wired in you prior to even choosing the military as part of the catalyst? You know, I know you're trying to give your brother a little bit of like a boost there, but I think, you know, sometimes we're like, you know, there's a little bit of like destiny there based on your wiring. That desire to protect might have been part of who you were way prior to you joining the military.
It's always in me, I think, looking back, because you know, as a 14-year-old kid, I remember challenging this guy who disrespected my mom.
Mm.
You know, and I was kind of like surprised myself, you know, but you know, certain things you protect, you know, with your life. So I think that gave me a kind of like an edge and a kind of toughness when I went in, because basic training was no joke, man. Back then. We were in that transition period where they were just, you know, coming out of Vietnam, and it was a volunteer army, right? So they hated us because we volunteered to come in, right? We were like, man, this is a trip. But I loved it. You know, if it weren't for the military, I wouldn't be as
half of who you are today. Exactly. You know. What, you know, you lived overseas. I know you have a German wife, and you spent, you know, 20 years on and off in Germany, right?
In Germany, yeah.
Tell us about Europe and Germany and how that shaped you as a person, as a man.
First of all, it was an eye opener to me, because when I went to Europe for the first time, it was in a foreign country. You know, the language, the food, the culture was just totally different. And as a young man going over there for the first time, you know, I didn't care about none of that. I was just looking at the women, right? So that was my first, you know, positive experience in Germany. It's just like they were so beautiful, and, you know, they were so respectful. And then you started noticing, you know, how different things are, you know, whether you're in the military or when you're not, because, you know, we still have to abide by their rules and regulations of the country and stuff. So
how are the German rules? Most people aren't going to be aware of like their rules versus ours. What's the distinction there? Well, I mean, it's a big question, but just a simple.
I'll break it down to you like this. If you live in an apartment building, right, and you've got like 3 or 4 floors, everybody's responsible for taking care of the stairs all the way down, sweeping it on the weekends. So one apartment do it, you know, then the next one, the next one, the next one. They pick up trash. They respect everything, you know. So
yeah, that's pretty cool. You like that, right?
I do. You know, I think it takes away a lot of confusion. You know, if I know what you're doing as my neighbor, it makes my life a lot easier, right? If you're over there, you know, doing something you're supposed to be doing, and, you know, that's it. For me, that's how it is. But
so is it more that we're in this together? Is that part of the mentality there?
As far as,
you know, if everybody's, you know, taking care of all the.
You know what I think, honestly, and I give this a lot of thought, because I'm like, why can our country be like this? Right? Because they don't look at me as being, you know, black. They look at me as being human. You know, there's no such
What about
thing.
American?
You know, but I'm an American, but they look at me, they don't see color.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I've been with my wife for 32 years, interracial.
Yeah. So in Germany, a totally different distinction
it's
there.
Different. It's
Tell us about that distinction.
What do you mean as far as?
Like the distinction between, you know, the way Europeans are viewing you guys interracially versus.
It's accepted.
Like, much more accepted.
Oh yeah, it's accepted. I mean, you're always going to have your problems everywhere in life and stuff like that, but I think it was more accepted there. If I would have been married to my wife
here 30
earlier,
years ago,
I wouldn't. You know, society probably would have put a lot of strain on her, not on me. You know, as a you know, female in a, you know, relationship with a black guy. You know what I'm saying? But for me, it's just like something that I wanted and needed. You know, in my life to get to this point. You know, of success. I think. I think because the country has been through so much, you know, as far as the war, and you know, they've seen destruction. Yeah. They know what it's like not to have. We don't know what it's like not to have Americans. So
true. That's really a good point.
Our vision of other countries is coming from a place where a lot of Americans don't go abroad. You know, we live within. You know, we're self-sustaining. So when you go overseas, and we have to adapt to the way of living, it's, you know, at first it's a culture shock, and then all of a sudden it's acceptance, and then, you know, there's living. You know, that's pretty much it. Yeah. So I loved it, man. Now it's changing. The whole world's changing. It's not the same like that anymore. I was over there when the war came out.
Because the integration with East Germany. What's the change there?
I just think world events. I think politics. I think
Yeah.
people in general, you see, hunger. You see, a lot of things
Hunger that
that
you didn't see in the past?
and
Is
then
that,
don't see it at all. Did never seen it. Now you see it.
and why do you think that is?
I just think it's just the way society is made up to be. Just take care of yourself and don't worry about your
You,
neighbors.
and that's changing in Germany
Oh
in a
yeah,
bad
oh,
way?
yeah, for sure. Now you got to understand that
Yeah.
um, they had a lot of immigrants coming to their country also,
Right.
because they had the
Well,
borders down, and
totally.
so now their culture has to change.
Right.
Because now you have to be fair to all of your citizens, regardless whether they're there illegally or illegally. They
Right.
still have certain rights, right? And that's changing how a lot of Europeans are feeling, because a lot of times when somebody comes in from another country and certain stipulations they meet, you get social service help and this and that. Now they got millions of them, so that
Get
wears on your
overwhelmed.
resources.
Yeah, totally.
When I'm as a natural citizen, if I can't get the resources that I'm paying for, and I see somebody from another country come,
Yeah.
then I'm gonna have a problem with that, because nobody explained to me why and how it's possible. And it's not that person's fault that want to have that freedom of life, to have better for their family,
Yeah.
So it's
super
kinda like a happy
tricky,
medium,
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
super tricky.
But guess what? I'm like this. We have rules for certain reasons.
Mm.
Every country should be welcome to anybody who wants to travel, but you should be able to follow the rules and the laws by that country.
Mm-hmm.
You should not be able to just go into a country and think that you're entitled to certain things, because that's just not the way it's done. And I think by me being in the military helped me understand that better, because I've been in the Middle East. I've been all over the world. I've had some pretty important and special opportunities, to do service for, other countries as well as ours. And it's all over the world. It's not only here. It's everywhere, because
It being what? When you say it's all over the world, what are you
how
referring
people
to?
live, people, the despair that people are in, you know what I'm saying? It's all over the world,
Totally.
So in
Yeah.
a way, you can't blame them. But then again, you have to have some type of order so you understand who's coming in.
Yeah.
It's a lot. I'm a logistics guy too, so I
Yeah.
understand the supply chain. So for me to explain
Yeah.
that to you, it makes sense. And just certain things that have to be done. That's one of them.
Mm.
So Europe is a beautiful place to visit. I mean, their history is amazing. The people are amazing. The food, the beer is amazing. But there's no place like home.
Yeah.
I could still see.
How long were you physically in Germany? How long did you actually live in Germany?
I mean, I say about straight. The longest I lived in Germany, probably about 7 years, 8 years. Because I built my wife a home, right, in her hometown near her parents, because I didn't want our kids to lose that part of their family history. They forgot to speak German. So I kind of like gave up my job here, went over there and got a job, and I was able to build our house there, and we stayed there for like 7 years, and that's when everything started turning. I came back. I was over there when the wall came down.
Wow.
I could tell you a little story about
89,
that.
I believe.
89. I was over. That's the year after I got hurt.
Oh wow.
I was still going through my surgeries and all that stuff.
Yeah, totally. Just all.
And
what was that like that year?
it was surreal, man. Because we're over there fighting for against communism, for freedom, democracy and stuff, And that a lot of your brothers and sisters passed away fighting for that cause, right? And I'm standing right there in the street, and on my left was West Germany, on my right was East Germany, right?
Yeah.
There was a Mercedes-Benz here, and there was a Trabi here. There's a little plastic car that they drove.
Right.
And that was my reality.
Wow.
I'm like, there's no wall here.
Yeah.
And my first initial question myself is like, what do we do now?
Yeah.
Because who are we protecting now?
Yeah.
Because
well, there's still the big bad Russian Empire, right?
yeah, we thought different back
then.
Things don't change, man.
Did they get rid of the Stasi? How long did it take them to actually, once the wall came down, did they get rid of
Well, that thing is, it's like a transition period.
Yeah.
Where they're trying to, acquire this freedom that they never had. And the individuals who were free were trying to understand why they were like that, So they were all Germans.
Right.
And they had relatives and stuff. So it was a whole lot of, getting together, figuring things out and changing the laws and currencies and everything, and it was rough for a while. But you know, they welcomed them with open arms. They did. I mean, it kind of, you know, took a toll on them. But you know what? They showed us how to do it right. You know, because they absorbed a whole nother country, man.
Yeah, it's pretty
the
amazing.
whole Eastern Bloc, man. They absorbed. You know,
Yeah.
I'm like, man, because they know what it's like. Because they you know, their country was decimated, destroyed. You know, and they seen it. And for us, could we absorb Mexico? Well, I mean, we pretty much have, but well, you think about that, you know. But they did it with, you know. I mean,
it would take a lot of resolve that I don't think we have. I think we're pretty sure we're building a wall.
It was amazing for me to be a part of that history, to be able to sit down and be able to tell my grandkids, you know, that Pop was, you know, a part of something in history that made a difference. You know, for me, coming from where I came from, Farmingdale, I was born in Farmingdale, New Jersey.
Right.
You know.
And how far is that from Asbury Park, so people know?
Oh man,
Bruce
so probably
Springsteen,
about
like Asbury Park. Right?
say
We need
probably
our reference points.
45 minutes to an hour based upon traffic. But it's still
But
beautiful.
didn't you go to high school in Neptune?
Neptune. Went to high school in Neptune.
And is that close to Asbury Park here?
It's right across the street. Man. We're rivals, man. Football, basketball.
All right.
It's the best time.
Now, did any of your siblings, like, you know, like become international like you? You know, do
you know
something
what?
that
Yeah.
out of 10, yeah.
Let me see. 6 of us. 6 of the boys in this. It were 8 boys and 3 girls, and 6 of the boys went in the military.
6 of 8. That's amazing.
And we met. I met a couple of them overseas in Germany.
Wow.
You know, it's crazy. I could tell you some stories.
Mostly
about
in
that.
the Army or other branches?
You know, my brother was in the Navy, and the rest of us were in the Army.
Wow. You guys make fun of the Navy, brother?
No, you know, you know what? Actually, we never sit around and talk about the military.
Never, huh?
No. We just sit around and just talk about, you know, the old days we used to grow up, and our mom, you know, how she raised us and stuff, you know. Bad things we got away with and stuff like that. But, you know, 6 of us went in, and I think out of all of them, my oldest brother, I have a brother, and he's still in right now.
Like
he's in a I think he's in reserve. I'm not sure about 1 or 2, right? He's a sergeant major. He's doing really well. Cedric, thumbs up. My brother Cedric, still in the military.
Nice.
And other than that, you know, military was pretty much how we learned about life and certain things about being men and being committed and dedicated to something that you believe in and stuff. So it was a blessing for me to have been through what I went through, and I would do it again.
You would do it again?
If my country needed me, man, I'd kiss mama goodbye. I'm out.
Wow.
Because, you know, Americans don't understand what we have. It's a blessing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you know, this country's the best country in the world, hands down, man. We're blessed. So I think a lot of countries, you know, a lot of when they reach a certain age, they have to go on for like 2 years. That wouldn't hurt our country right now.
Wait, what wouldn't
a lot of the, for like the Israeli army, you have to go on mandatory 2 years.
Oh, totally, yeah. No,
that would not hurt our country to send these kids. If you're not going to college,
yeah,
go do something, volunteer for 2 years, military rec, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, go away and learn something, you know, and come back and share it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that will change.
Well, it makes you a lot tougher, right?
More responsible.
Right, exactly.
More mature, you know, and toughness.
More disciplined.
Discipline and toughness is a part of it too, because sometimes when you stand alone, you know, against other people, man, that's a certain toughness. Like if you're being bullied, right?
Yeah.
You gotta have a certain toughness to make it through that. And if you don't have that toughness, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's what the military does, man. It turns you into a man. I'm telling you, if you're not, you're going back to the block.
Yeah. Because the other way of doing it, as I'm sure you've found out as well, is, you know, it takes 15 or 20 years. A lot of people in their 20s and 30s, they're not really grown-ups, right? And so what you're describing is just speeding everything up to being more responsible, more mature, more disciplined, even more aware, because you're having cross-cultural experiences that are, right?
You know, even when we talk,
so much more.
Talk about you and your travels and stuff, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the best education you can have. You know, you travel abroad and you learn other cultures. That's what respect comes
But you're also curious by nature. just because you're in the military doesn't make you necessarily curious, right?
No, it doesn't.
You have a personality. Yeah, because I worked at Camp Pendleton for a year. I did my, my year of family service center
Yep.
and hundreds and hundreds of Marines I work with. And many of them were awesome, but not necessarily curious. Right?
You know what I do?
Yeah.
Because I feel like I'm so blessed. One, I'm blessed to be with my wife for 32 years, right? Two, I got all my kids
That's
are healthy.
32 years.
32 years.
You kind
I'm a
of said
dinosaur.
it sort of
I've never
fast.
been.
I'm not sure everybody.
My first
that.
marriage, I was married twice. My first marriage, I was married for 8 years. So I've not been single for 40 years.
So we say that one more time. 8 years and 32, and what about? So you haven't been single
for 40 years.
Yeah. By the way, I did the opposite. I did 32 girlfriends, more or less, and then one wife.
Well, see, look, all of that got you to where you're at now. So it
for
worked
sure.
out, right?
No, I'm grateful too.
Everywhere,
but
you never know.
But there were different kinds
avenues
of
success. Trust me.
That was no easy path either. Trust me.
So, I'm just happy to be, here, and I try to do one good deed a day.
That's awesome. I love it.
I mean, I'm like, if I do one good deed a day.
Yeah. See, I didn't know that about you, but the first time I met you, like in the middle of the COVID thing or whatever it was,
I know, right?
Like the lockdown, I don't know, forced lockdowns or whatever it was. Anyway, the first time I met you and your wife, I said to my wife, I'm like, I like that guy. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, because I like people that have a consciousness that care about other souls, right? I'm very biased that way, right? It's like I'm oriented that way. It's nice when people want to give back, are appreciative,
you have to, man.
Mentor, right? The desire to assist others on this. It's difficult, right? As you know.
Very difficult. But somebody told me this one day, and it stuck. And he just said, if somebody need help, help them. Yeah. I'm like, wow, how simple is that?
Yeah. I
mean, if everybody thought like that, man, if somebody needs help,
or even if one out of two thought like that.
Yeah, right. So that's how I try to live my life, man. I've seen the worst of the worst. I've seen the best of the best, and I just want to live my life in the middle, man. That's where I'm at right now, where I could give freely without having any fear about not having. Yeah. That's where I'm.
How long did it take you to get to the other side of that fear? That's an intense fear. I've done a lot of work with people. That's not an easy fear to let go.
You know what? I think it comes with life and maturity and just me being confident in my abilities because I've experienced so much in life. It's not anything pretty much that's going to shake me other than, me not being with my wife or being, my family, you know what I'm saying? Anything else, it's just allowing yourself to live life.
But
and
even that
life.
Fear still can be underneath if it can be around family, losing a family member.
You know what?
So you're saying you've shaken that fear.
Yep.
So like how'd that work?
I think out of all of my experiences in life, it taught me how to be a realist.
A realist?
A realist.
Okay.
We're not going to be here forever.
That's for sure.
Whatever happened, whatever can happen will happen.
But you're planning on living to 100.
Yeah, you know me. I set my standards high. I just tell my wife and say, in April I'll be 60%.
Yeah, you don't look close to 60. So I think it's possible. But
we'll go to sleep one day and wake up like, who was that guy?
Well, I tell my wife all the time, I'm like, babes, there's no guarantee I'm waking up tomorrow. So we gotta be fun in this moment, right?
She's making you younger though. She's making you younger. She's giving you that energy, but I see it on the course, man. I'm telling you. I see it on this guy, man. And you know, what I enjoy about you, man, one of the things I enjoy about you is your words, man. Like I'm out on the course and you walk away and said, take your time. We have time. Yeah. And stuff like that, you'd be like, he's right. We don't hear that. We don't hear that enough. Take your time. You have time. And, just those words of comfort, man, is what get people through, man.
Yeah. That's cool.
Because we all struggle different ways, you know what I'm saying? And that one word, you know what? Take your time. You'll get it. Yeah. And another thing you said that, I appreciate is when you show me something and you said, this is how you do it. And then you turn around and you say, and you just get good at it.
Yeah.
I'm like, man,
Well,
you know what? That makes
you
too
know-
much sense, man. I'm like, yeah, he's right.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's also nice when we talk about, like learning, which is probably something you've done along the way a
Yeah.
lot too. It's like, it's nice to have the right technique, right?
It's
like
important.
it's just, once you learn a decent technique, it doesn't have to be perfect, but once you learn a good technique, then you're practicing. And an athlete like you're going to get better at it, injured or not. You're just going to
keep working
you're
at
just
it,
athletic.
perfect it.
Right, the hip turn, whatever that is.
But you've done it
right?
already, so I can look at you and I can get better automatically.
Yeah.
You know? That's
When
me.
did you start playing golf, by the way?
I started playing golf and I retired. I left Europe, Germany in 2006. And I always wanted to play golf. And I think in 2006, 2007, I started playing by doing what you did, took a couple of lessons.
Nice, smart
and just
man.
went out on the course and just,
Smart man.
took my
I like
lumps,
that.
So I've been playing, for a little while, man. It's amazing.
So you never played somewhere along the way, 2006,
We
2007,
used-
it's not that.
We used to always go, as kids, go to golfing range. We
Oh, you did
always,
go to
yeah,
driving
but we
range,
just
right?
hit, didn't know what we were
Yeah,
doing. We
of
hit pretty
course
far,
not.
as kids. We didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah.
But,
Are any of your brothers any good? You have a lot of brothers. Somebody's got to be a
got-
golfer out there.
I think one brother, I think. And he's in Pennsylvania. He goes out a little bit with my uncle. My uncle's here right now. We're supposed to be going out tomorrow to play a little bit. I think we have to go early because it's going to rain, right?
Oh, I don't even pay attention. It really hasn't rained much.
It's going to rain,
like
I think,
this.
tomorrow. Oh, next
Okay.
week. So,
Yeah,
but
we've
still.
been. That
But
great.
I
What do you learn on a golf course, by the way? Because one of the things I appreciate about you is you like to learn.
Oh, yeah.
You are curious and you like to learn, which I think I'm again biased towards those ways of doing life, right?
I think.
But, like, what has these last 13 years of golf taught you about life?
How to respect people. The thing I like about golf is, and my wife said this, she said that it should, on a golf course, or my uncle said this, he's on a golf course, I don't see any racism. I'm like,
Interesting.
what? He said, I don't see it. I don't know why. He said, because if you follow rules of golf, there isn't any. There's just total respect of everything in the sport.
Yeah.
And that's what it taught me. If you follow the rules of golf would teach you so much about life and how to appreciate certain things and how to work towards something. And even like the putt I hit, right? For me, in my book, that was success, And,
Oh, he made the birdie on the 12th hole of the little par 3 course we played the other day on Palm Beach.
But you told me,
like
you
that-
said it.
Yeah. Well, you had the hip turn on the swing. So he put the 8-iron. I thought it was an 8-iron too.
Yep.
Puts the 8-iron like 30 feet above the hole, which is no easy putt. And then he drained it for a birdie.
But you
Like,
said
when's the last time you made a birdie, pal? Like that
a
was
few months ago.
Yeah, that's no easy
But
feat. when
you
you're
said
learning
help
the
me
game.
though, because I told you your words mean a lot because you
Thank
had me
you,
locked
appreciate that.
in.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
that.
you said you said it. You said the conditions are perfect. You can get it. Find your mark and hit it in. And that was it. And I was just bam. I'm like, as soon as I hit it, I knew it was in. I'm like, man,
That's
that's
awesome.
perfect, man. I'm like, this dude, man.
Well, that's why the game is so amazing. It's like, you can struggle throughout a round,
Oh, yeah.
and then you have all of a sudden you get a little stretch, you put a few shots together, and you hit it so perfect that you just want to keep playing. You want to come back.
I think you're different from all the other guys I play with because even in your conversation about golf, it's instruction. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well,
I mean, even your
like to
casual
teach.
conversation.
I like to teach. It's
I love
my
it.
bias.
I'm like, man, that's how you're supposed to learn. There's no pressure. Like, man, look,
Oh, no pressure.
You'll get better. Just
Well, you're definitely
You know.
going to get better. You're an athlete. I mean, it really does make a difference when you're, when you're athletic. It's easier. I find it's much easier to teach
but
somebody.
you just got. I told you, I figured you out the first 3 holes. I told you. I said, man, this guy, man, he got set up is the same way. That man. I'm like, all right, I could get better, man. This
Yeah,
guy's
it's
good.
only 15 seconds, right? That little
Yeah.
pre-shot routine. That's all it is, and then you're just hanging. And I talk
15
a lot
seconds,
about
man.
this, about the mental game in business life and sports. This really is
Yeah.
about dialing in, right, and then letting go in between. And that's why golf is so amazing. When you're playing hoops or something, it's so you know, if you're not in shape or something, you're sucking air. The
Yep,
last time I
yes,
played
sir.
competitive tennis, which we're going to play, not competitive because we're
We're
both
just
like
volley.
no good
We're-
anymore.
We're at
right?
the fun stage in life.
But like when you're sucking air, it's totally different, right?
Yeah, but you know
you're
what?
see a double.
Look,
you know,
man, you know what?
like-
We eat pretty good, I think, right?
Yeah.
So we got to be some kind of pain, man, with that, right?
Oh.
Get out there and
Oh,
you
no,
know,
I
come back
I haven't
stiff.
been pain free since I was 24. When's the last time you were pain free? I was 24
not.
years old.
Yeah.
I'm not joking. Like I'm not. There's no joke. I've been injured on and off since then.
25.
25. I could have been. By the way, it might have been 25. Like seriously.
Yeah, 25. Man, that's like,
I
wow.
think we were both 25. I was gonna say 25, and I said 24.
mean,
But I
that's
think
a
I was
long time.
25 the last time I experienced no pain.
I'm 59 now, so that's a long time.
As you're 59, I'm 54 in a couple
We're
weeks.
we're
here.
over 50, so that's all that matters.
Yeah.
right?
So, but pain is also fascinating too because you can learn how to manage,
Yep.
right? Like when you're, like I've had a lot of injuries, not just this, right? I've had
Yeah.
back injury, shoulder injury, shoulder surgery, and so on, right? I had a really bad hip injury that was misdiagnosed. It was really, I tore my glutes, and the doctor misdiagnosed me with a partially dislocated hip. And then I wound up, he put me on crutches. I was only 26 years old. He puts me on crutches. I never had any rehab because I didn't even ask about it.
Right.
This was 25 years ago or whatever. And so I didn't know enough to sort of get the right treatment. And it like healed wrong. And I had a decade of a flamethrower, like nerve damage and nerve pain through my butt and
Yeah.
low back. And I would literally go on a date and I'd be in freaking physical agony. I would never say a word because like it's not, no one, if you've never been through a lot of physical
Yeah,
pain, people
yeah,
don't understand it, right?
Sometimes you just block it out.
Well,
Just deal
yeah,
with it.
and I did, you know, and when you've been through a lot of it, you know that the emotional piece to it is also, right? When you get
Not easy.
tired or worn down, that's when it just elevates,
You
right?
think that person noticed?
No, most people don't. You know, you can hide pain if you know what I mean. Like you're not.
Damn, man, I'm in pain like every day.
Yeah.
I'm in the military. I need.
Yeah.
If I let them cut on me, I'd be like a bionic man. Like, nah, I'll wait. So, you know. But yeah, man, you got here, man, and you hit the ground running, man, and made a difference in a lot of people's lives. Just your conversation, man, is important.
Awesome. We really
Especially in a
appreciate that.
community like this where everybody knows everybody, and you know, it's nice to have that little uplift, you know. So we gotta play golf every Wednesday.
Oh no, we're in. We're done with that. That's a no-brainer. Anything you want to ask? Anything you're curious about while you got me here?
Yeah, you know,
Anything you want to ask
about what
me?
you do, or
Anything. It could be anything. I'm like open that way.
so you know,
Yeah.
I know some professional athletes. We don't never name names and stuff like that,
yeah.
right? How important is sports psychology to these athletes when
You
it
know,
comes to success and failure?
When it comes to how important is sports psychology when it comes to professional athletes and success and failure, you know, we're going to do this video on Brooks Koepka,
Okay.
and he's like, you know, top 5 in the world or whatever, and he's won 4 major championships in the past 3 years, and he's the kind of guy that doesn't seem to need a sports psychologist
Yeah.
because he seems so dialed in, and maybe he could use it in other areas, maybe around a little bit around humility or something like that,
Right.
but for the most part, it adds an insane amount of value because a lot of athletes, like they're like the rest of us, they have a lot of moving parts to their lives. And so if they're struggling with their relationships or the relationship with themselves, or they're going through ruts, you know,
Right.
periods of time where they're getting a little down, as you know, attitude is probably, you know,
Everything.
yeah,
Everything.
7/8 of it or whatever.
What?
And even the best of us go through phases where like our attitude gets, you know, can take a little bit of a beating,
Yeah.
right? So having someone to talk to, the process, to guide, and then to sort of work through is invaluable. And so for those people that can afford it or can figure it out or create it in some way, whether it's a mentoring relationship, having somebody that's talented behind you and with you
Yeah.
is
right.
like the biggest no-brainer ever, you know.
That's why I'm
So-
married for 32 years.
Yeah, there you go. So your wife's your sports
Support is
psychologist.
everything. It seems like now, being up, you know, from my perspective, you know, the game of basketball. Does a kid need to have some type of therapist to talk to with all the competition and the pressure on kids nowadays to be part of the parents' retirement plan?
Well, I mean, a kid that's that talented, there's a lot of pressure depending on, like we had a coach here a couple months ago for an interview, and he was saying to the camera, please, what I mean, like, come talk to me afterwards. Don't scream at me during the game or whatever. And, there's just a lot of pressure now on kids, and there's a lot of competition. And sometimes parents sort of can amplify that, right? So if the parents aren't chill and they're overly competitive themselves, then that kid can be under a tremendous amount of pressure. And so there's a distinction between the kid that has the D1 ability and the D1 potential, and the kids that aren't ever going to be D1, but that parents think they are.
Right.
And so there's just a lot of moving parts. My background is actually in clinical psych, and I turned myself into a sports psychologist over the last 15 years. But I did a decade of families and adolescents. That's why I wound up working at Camp Pendleton for 10 months. So that background with families and adolescents is so valuable because the moving parts in that world are tremendous. Family systems, when people run it, you were in logistics, when people are running a business in general, they're running it from their family system, how they were raised.
Right.
And a lot of that is unconscious. Now, what a potential psychologist or sports psychologist can do is help you become more conscious of who you are and what you're about and how you're running your organization or your team, right? Because a lot of people are doing it like George Steinbrenner. His father was a lot like him, a really demanding, over the top, like super critical guy that would feel guilty and throw everything at him, right? And then George Steinbrenner would do that. Remember all the in the day when Steinbrenner would fire Billy Martin and then take him back, and then and then he would hire everybody back, pay them really well, but he'd have a temper tantrum and fire these people. And so he was so unconscious in his management style. And a lot of coaches, a lot of athletes, unless they have some kind of guidance, some kind of perspective, they can be unconscious running their world the way they were parented, or the opposite of the way they're parented, right? Because sometimes, a person will be the exact opposite. So if you had a really stern father, maybe you're too liberal as a father yourself because you go too far the other way. And consciousness is really about, learning how to be aware and be in choice, right? A lot of people think they're conscious. They say there's this new age sort of term about how people are happiness is a choice. It's not really, for most people, it's not a choice. They're not conscious enough to make the choice.
How do you help somebody like it? And the reason I ask this is because I'm always trying to figure out, why is this kid a distraction on the court when he's on a great team, he's got a great coach, he's in a great environment to learn, and all of a sudden he's a problem. And sometimes, you think sports psychology should be a part of the youth athletics nowadays?
I mean, that would be amazing. A kid like that, it's possible. It's a form of self-sabotage, right? Or it's also, some people, depending on how they're raised, they're not comfortable with success, right? So they sabotage it because they never had it as kids. And so when they start to experience it, they get so uncomfortable that they're going to ruin it in some way. And that's not conscious, right? And so that's where sports psychology can, or mentoring, right, can have an invaluable role. Really pointing out that, look, you're sabotaging, you're bringing yourself back down and the team down, right?
Yeah, it's different than when we play, right? Sports nowadays.
Oh yeah, well, the whole world, it feels more complicated today.
I think because they're starting at a younger age, it's like these kids playing sports all year round without a break. Now you have ACL surgeries at such young ages because, they're not giving themselves opportunity for the body to recover. You go right from one session to the next all year round. So I don't know. I just think
it just seems like there's more pressure in general everywhere, right? You have social media pressure, right? You have the competition pressure. I mean, we always felt pressure, but it just seems to me like,
it's down at a low level now. You got kids 7, 8 years old. In development programs. And they don't even know what an abacus is. You know what I'm saying? You give them time to learn and enjoy the sport. But now it's just every year I say this is my last year.
In terms of coaching, in terms of the
officiating.
referee,
Yeah,
yeah,
because you can see,
like how difficult it's getting. Is that
and
what
it's the support level of. It's like it's more about the money, and it's not about what's right for the child, right? And you know, parents are getting more leeway to act the way they act because they're spending this money for this team, or the individual who's running the program, he's got, you know, bills to pay, so he's making concessions, and you know, it's not ran the way it's supposed to be ran. So these kids are not really seeing a successful program being ran. They just feel like they're being a part of it. You know, if you don't play this weekend, we're not going to win the championship.
Right.
You know, we deal with that as officials. So as a sports psychologist, and I brought my child to you and said, hey, can you figure him out?
Well, I can definitely figure him out, but you know what the fascinating part is? A lot of times you bring the whole family into it, right? In your situation, right, we would probably have discussions because you are a very involved dad, right? So
sure.
we got a puppy in the background here.
What do you want alone?
Intermission. All right, intermission. Awesome.
It's not your fault.
Right. All right, so let me go back in. You can keep it right here. It's fine.
Right.
Okay, so we just got like momentarily interrupted by our puppy here. Her name is actually Jupiter, like, which is pretty cool.
Jupiter.
Because we wound up in Florida and we're not far from Jupiter, right? So, and my wife did the astrology and tarot card reading thing, and so she named her Jupiter a year and a half ago, and then here we are, not far from Jupiter, Florida. What else today, though, while we got you here? Anything else you're curious about, or anything, Greg, you know, that you want to share?
Off subject, on subject?
Yeah. What?
Off subject, on subject?
It doesn't matter, man. You're free. In my world, we're free.
How was your transition here, coming here and getting established, and you know, because you make it seem like you've been here forever.
I appreciate that.
You know what I'm saying?
Cool.
I mean, it's like it's not. I don't get that too often.
Well, right? But you lived internationally, so have I, and I've also lived all through the United States.
Yeah.
And so I've done a lot of traveling and a lot of exploring. I haven't really done this thing traditionally. It's been a long time since I've been traditional. Like, basically, I hooked my life at like 39, 40, and I traveled on and off for a couple years out west. And then again, I lived internationally at 51 years old. So I've learned how to like move and adjust. Like I lived, you know, prior to, since I sold my house in Connecticut in 2014, I think I've lived in like 11 places in like 5 years or something. It's a lot of travel and a lot of change. And there's pluses and minuses to that. You know, it can get, you know, tiring and a little bit distracting sometimes when you move too much. But on the other hand, you also, I consider myself insanely adaptive and flexible.
I can see that.
Yeah, I can just go with the flow. You know what I mean? Like if someone's drinking tequila, I'm drinking tequila, right? Like even if it's not my thing, right? You know, I'll just, you know, I'll go with the flow for the experience.
That's way to get along.
Well, I'm just a connector type, so for my personality style, I kind of like it when you're super flexible that way. But I've also learned how to honor myself too, right? So when it doesn't fit or doesn't feel right, I'm going to pass. And so I'm actually very selective as well. So meaning, so when I start hanging out with somebody, they've got to be very real. I'm just not, the real. I really love honesty, and I like authenticity, and I like realness, and I like intelligence. So I'm biased, you know, towards all the, right? So the people in my world, they are going to have some commonality, and I like integrity a lot, not a little bit. You know, you get older, and you get older, and you want integrity. You just and you want kindness too, right? Some decency.
Military taught me integrity.
Yeah,
you know, it's important, man. You know, sometimes the last thing you have in life is our word. You know.
Yeah, well,
and it's important to me. So. That goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
So, I want to ask you.
Yeah, please.
You got into this field because you wanted to be successful, or because you wanted to help people?
No, it had nothing to do with success.
Okay.
Because, like, you know, I'm an identical twin, and there's a distinction, as you know, between success and financial success, because our culture sometimes confuses those. We look at people that are billionaires or multimillionaires as successful, And yes, they're financially successful. And often, it can be partially related to the family system they're born into, right?
Yeah.
If they're born in a poor village in India, it's unlikely they're going to become a millionaire in this lifetime, right? So in my world, I studied economics and psychology at Emory University in Atlanta. I worked in business for a couple years before I went to get a doctorate in psychology. And the business world for me at the time felt pretty empty. I didn't feel like, I was wired to sort of make a difference. It's just how I'm wired, to have an impact or make a difference or care. I care. It's just,
same way.
It's deep.
Yeah, you had to.
Yeah. And so psychology was a pretty good fit. It wasn't a perfect fit. It's complicated going into psychology. The transition was very difficult. It's like 80% female. And then, it just, as a really good athlete, it doesn't, it was hard that way because I didn't do sports psychology then. And so I developed that later. So the transition,
like on the fly.
What's that?
On the fly.
Well, like, I wouldn't say on the fly. I would say like it was a conscious choice over time. Because I'm like, athletes are fun, right? And I often say there's a higher commitment to excellence when you work with athletes, right? Which is probably part of the military training as well.
Train.
Right, yeah.
That's how you train,
Exactly.
man. Be the best.
Yeah, but success though, financial success, I'm an identical twin. My twin brother made millions and millions of dollars on Wall Street while I was helping people in psychology. And where I lived in Fairfield County, Connecticut, it wasn't, it was sort of noble.
Okay.
Like it wasn't necessarily, what I did was kind of noble, right? It was kind of like, it was disparaging to be a male school teacher in like the area I was raised in, right? And as a psychologist, you were a little bit above that. In other words, so it wasn't respected like going into finance or, mergers and acquisitions or private equity or, hedge fund world and so on.
So you had to make it work for you.
I had to make it work for me, and it was very difficult. And it was just all through my 30s, I felt like a fish out of water where I lived. And that's part of the reason why I unhooked my life at 40 and traveled and put my business on the phone. And that's when I really started to sort of look at life differently, get out of the box and run a business remotely on the phone and be creative. And then that led to, unfortunately, I made some mistakes along the way. And
we all have.
Yeah.
And then got you here, so.
It got me here,
It's an experience,
like,
not a mistake.
Yeah, well, like sometimes it doesn't feel that way.
No, but man, look, long as
when
you
you
keep moving
lose your
forward.
health, your business, your
look
your
at that.
self-esteem,
Right?
totally. No, I mean
that's a
come on.
blessing. Now I haven't talked to too many people that can say that. I've done it, so it's not easy.
Yeah,
you got to still stay focused.
yeah. Well, that's the key, Greg. As you know, like one of the most important things is to never ever feel sorry for yourself ever.
Can't.
And so that's something I learned along the way is that I don't, no matter what happens, like, I'm not feeling sorry for myself. I might be in a ton of pain. I might have to go through heartache or whatever it is, but I'm not doing self-pity for half a second.
That's not me.
Yeah.
Can't
But
do
that's something, as you know, right, from living, a lot of people like will do self-pity. It has to go. It's like.
That's one of the biggest deterrents to success right there, man. That takes away a lot of your abilities.
Yeah.
If
If you had to summarize success, like before we wrap up here, how would you summarize it?
In terms of how I'm living or overall?
Well, either. How would you?
So I would sum up success being from my standpoint, my point of view, as an individual journey that has no ending. You choose the point to get off and be comfortable.
An individual journey that has no ending. You choose the point to get off and be comfortable. Greg James, absolute pleasure.
Let me look at this elbow bump.
We can do.
That's the hand too, man.
Yeah, that's my second handshake since the surgery.
How did it feel?
It's sore.
That was a good grip, man. That's good.
Oh, I always
what?
do it.
That handshake got you a signed contract with me, buddy.
All right, thanks a lot, guys.
All right.